Hello Internet, this is Geeks with an Achron Commentary. And today we'll be playing on Overgrown Citadel version 1.2. I'm playing against Cybernetiac. And the version that we're playing right now, it's still in beta, it's version 0.8.2. And I'm saying this because there's a map version and then there's, the game version. And for those who don't know, Acron is a real-time strategy game by Hazardous Software. A very unique one too. I wouldn't say it's like the best thing that ever happened to RTSs or something like that, but as far as I'm concerned, it's certainly bringing something new to the table. To bring the bar higher up. And I'm just waiting for my opponent to start the game. He's hosting. And let's see, we're going to be playing again with the two new races. I mean, there's 3 races, kind of like StarCraft, and I apologize in advance because I will be using a lot of StarCraft terms here, just so that we have something like a point of reference, I guess, for everybody, including myself, because it's a really hard. Like Cybernetiac and myself are very new to the game, so we barely know any of the lingo. What is an octo? What is a well, we know what a marine is because you can play humans and stuff like that. But what is a chrono port and what is a slingshot? We don't know that stuff. Well, we kind of do now, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. So we're fairly new to the game, and we're playing kind of like an experimental thing here. We're casually beating the crap out of each other, trying to learn how to play the game and what does everything do and stuff like that. So like I mentioned earlier, there's 3 races. There's human, Grekir, I think they're called, Grekim, which is the race that I'm playing. They're kind of like the biological race. And then there's the Vekgir or something. I mean, they're the Protoss equivalent. And you'll notice that it's got a very Tron. I mean, the visuals right now. I mean, I'm not going to say too much about it. It's because the game is still like in development, so a lot of it can change. But from what I can tell is that it looks decent the way it is. But I would definitely change a lot of the models just to make them more unique from one another, just to differentiate themselves. It's kind of hard to tell what a Zergling is compared to a Hydralisk, for example. Because those 3 units that I have on the map, they're my breeders, which that's how you make units as a Grekim. Is that you pretty much set them up ready to reproduce, procreate, and if you mix them together, I mean, that's the way you can grow. Like right now I'm building more Octos, which is like the Zergling equivalent, and they can morph into drones, for the lack of a better term. So those are my Zerglings, and they're pretty much the same size as, say, a Roach, or like to compare with StarCraft and stuff like that. And another thing is, like, right now you have a lot of placeholder art, like those blue boxes are my crystals that I'm gathering, and you'll notice red boxes also, and they're my Vespian gas. So yeah, I'm just trying to set up like my resources. Like, it's kind of hard to play. I mean, after a while, after a few games, you can kind of start to understand what's going on, like the arrows, what's happening with the arrows, the blue arrows pointing to my hatchery. I'm trying to do like some quotes here, because it's not really a hatchery, but whatever. That's like the hierarchy system, where every command that you give to, say, the unit or the building that's encircled blue, that's your leader, and whatever command you give that, it'll delegate however it needs to go to the other units around it, stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to explain, but as far as like the UI is concerned, it's very traditional for an RTS. It's got hotkeys for group selections. It's got resource tab at the top left corner. You know how much resources you have. You got a mini map. You've got like your box at the bottom right corner, which is like your mouse commands, which, you know, if you know the hotkeys, you can go without. Top left corner, you don't see it now, but you saw it a few seconds ago, was like your error messages or something that happens. It'll tell you there, like, oh, you know, you can't build there or something like that. There's no sound for it yet, so those errors pop up there. And but the very special thing for Acron is what happens at the bottom of the screen. On the center is a timeline. Because here's the little thing, like I'll call it a gimmick, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's when I think it's gonna, you know, bring something new to the RTS genre, is that Achron has time travel involved into the mix, and it does it very well. Right now we're in the present, so whatever we do, you know, it happens, and you can pause a game, you can play and fast forward, and what will happen is that it'll move your perception within the timeline. You can see my opponent, Cybernetiac, who is in blue, a vertical bar in the timeline, and he's overlapping me. We're both in the present, and I'm in red. And you see like a little graphic of what happens during the timeline, like stuff in green is like unit created. So, you know, I created some units like a minute ago and stuff like that, for example. So right now I'm kind of expanding-ish. You don't need to create like command centers or hatcheries to make expansions. All you need is your drones, because they don't move back to your hatchery or command center. They just stay idle and they gather resources. At least for now, in any case. So I send my units early because I still have that StarCraft mentality. It kind of plays the same too, in the sense that well, speed-wise not necessarily, but in terms of like what you need to do against your opponent, you know, there's a lot of macro involved. Macro is about like building your base, gathering your resources, stuff like that. So I'm expanding, well, putting that in quotes, and right now I'm trying to set up my hierarchy. So I build a mount or mound. And what that does, that building's kind of an odd thing to do with the Zerg of the game, is that for a human player it would be called like a comsat station, where it delegates automatically your hierarchy for your units, and it kind of works in a weird way with the Zerg. But in any case, the Grecum, I think they're called. I'm probably calling the Pruss equivalent the Grecum. Anyways, probably got the name of the race wrong. But anyways. So there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind while playing this game. It's got a lot of depth to it. Very simple in terms of what kind of units you can create, but it's the timeline, it's the time travel that really adds the layer of complexity. So right now I'm pretty much doing like the standard fare from what I can tell. Like I've played this game a couple of times. Against Cybernetiac actually, and you know, early on he won a lot of games, and now that I'm starting to understand the game, I caught up to him, and now I'm winning a lot more now. So right now I'm just like procreating a lot of units and trying to do some research. So there you go, and you'll see again I have. Let's say the hatchery, it's in blue, and then I got there's a unit in the center of the screen that's in blue. So now all the units that are attached to the hatchery with the little arrows, if I can control this one dude here, all my units attached that can move will follow the same order, which is really cool. So you don't need to have all your units selected. You just need to have your team leader selected, and you can hotkey your units. And if you say command a different unit within that hierarchy, it'll move independently but still be linked. So it's a pretty cool thing. I like it. If you know, other games could have that type of unit control, I would definitely welcome it. It's one of those weird things. Now I'm just looked at the timeline here. My my opponent just went back in time about like 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes in the past, and something happened. You see there's a lot of red showing up on the timeline. It comes in waves. You'll notice like right now I color coded my wave, so I'm in the blue wave in the present, and there's a green wave coming up, and it's got damage. So red is the damage I'm receiving, and the light blue is the damage I'm dealing. And I noticed that in the past he sent a unit or a couple of units into my base. So that's I lost a few things, and now I'm just looking at timeline, fast forwarding or going back in time. As far as the player is concerned, it's completely free. You can do it as many times as you want, but it's when you start controlling your units, because you can go back in time and fix things. Right now I'm mainly playing in the present because it's a lot easier to wrap your head around. But you can do some crazy stuff in the future and the past, and when you do that, it costs some chrono energy, and that's the bar that you see at right above the timeline. And you'll see me do some time travel stuff fairly soon. But I like to stick to the present. I think the closer you are to the present in your timeline, the safer you are, because if you're always in the past, you're always playing catch up at a certain point, which I always feel like I'm going to lose when that happens. So right now I'm just going back in time just to see, you know, if I still have my units and stuff like that, just to make sure, because again, the time wave thing, which is the blue thing that swipes across the screen all the time, it's an easy concept to understand, but it's a hard thing to wrap your head around in practice. So I'm going to try to like teleport my units within the timeline, and I get an error saying like it's too far back. So, and it's represented by the gray lines. And time travel is a risky thing. I was going to say I try to avoid it because I don't know, you know, it's hard to apply. So right now I sent my units back in time, and I pretty much lost them at that point. I don't know how far back I went. But I lost a few units. They're still there if the game is not glitched, and they'll participate. Like if my base is under attack at that time, my units that travel back in time will. It's, you know, I still don't know all of it, and my opponent still doesn't. And he's in the present though. I'm in the past. So 2 minutes ago, I'm sending my units to attack him. I mean, the map is mirrored, so I don't need to scout unless I'm looking for his tech, but we're two newbies, so we don't know jack. So yeah, I'm procreating some units. And am I attacking him at that point? No. But you can see him in the timeline right now. He's trying to look to see what I'm doing, which is something that's really interesting in this game. You always have to keep in mind of where your opponent is in the timeline. What is he looking at? And hoping that he's not trying to do stuff. And you can see in the present something is happening. I'm receiving some damage. So he either did something in the past to affect my future, or yeah, I'm attacking his base. And he's playing the Protoss equivalent. So yeah, like I said, it's either he sent stuff into the future, or he ordered them at that point in time to attack me. Either way, there's two battles happening in two different timelines. It's not necessarily a question of where, but when. They could both be happening at the same time. So, right now what am I doing? You can see like the yellow on my chrono energy. That's how much energy it costs to do an action. Because I got like 4 guys selected. The least amount of people you have selected, the less energy it costs. You can see it there clearly. So that's why you need to work with hierarchies. Because if you all link your characters to a single unit, then when you order that unit into the past, it costs a lot less energy, so you can micromanage a lot better. But here's the thing. If you went back to the past before you ever did your linking, your hierarchy, then they're still not linked. So it's really weird. So there's a lot of damage happening at this point, and for both our sakes, it's pretty confusing. Right now, I still got like some Colossus type unit into his base, and I'm dealing quite a bit of damage right now. But at the same time, there's still some stuff happening in the past, and my opponent is about a minute behind me right now, and he's trying to look at how he can fix the damage. And you can see the red bars, the red lines are being erased from time. So basically, in his timeline, nothing happened. No damage is taking place. So you really have to keep a lookout for your time waves. And it's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, it's mind-boggling. So now, time caught up to me, and my units disappeared. So I'm trying to figure out what happened. So I'm going back in time just to see. You know, I still got some units. I got my upgrades. You know, I'm double checking here. I could probably buy that. So I guess I could just procreate some more units. Again, I've set up a few, like, spawning pool, I guess you could call it that, like a few units in ready to procreate. And I put it in my expansion so that, you know, I can have multiple spawning locations. And what I noticed later on in other games is that each unit that you have in procreation mode that spawns more unit, it takes more energy to reproduce. So sometimes I should probably have more units of the same type to procreate, so I can build more units at the same time. But at the same time, like I'm sacrificing units to make more. I'm not sacrificing in the sense that I'm killing them, but it's like, you know, I'm creating some air units, but it's, you know, it's that unit while it's being, you know, while it's having sex. I mean, I can't control it, and I can't give it orders to attack or anything like that. So it's really weird. So I'm, you know, right now I'm just gathering more resources because I don't want to be too aggressive because we're still trying to learn the game. But right now my opponent's in the past and he's trying to cause some mischief. So I'm going to go back in time to see what is he doing. So we went back in time to the point where I had my units there, and I'm destroying his building. So right now I'm kind of winning, but still not sure yet because he could still do some tricky things. But let's see. So yeah, at that time, that still happened, or that hasn't happened yet. But then it happened because time caught up. We're in the present now, so things are looking good for me. And he calls for GG, so good game. He might have tried to be able to like go back in time and see if he can't prevent the attack from ever happening, but I think at some points you can't go back you can't go too far back. Like for me, the limit is about 230, depending on how much energy I have. I'm not too sure how to influence the because there's a time like about the 3-minute mark, 4-minute mark, and 5-minute mark. I can't go, like, I can observe what happened, but I can't affect it. I don't have the energy for it. So it's really weird. But from what I learned is that you can teleport your units to that timeline, but you won't be able to order them around. Excuse me. So things are looking good. The game is not over yet because the game still thinks that my opponent has a chance. So yeah. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but yeah, I'm looking for around for him. Like, gotta kill all his units and stuff like that. Because essentially, you know, if he had like a teleportation, like he could travel back in time with his one unit, and is like it'll be like, you know, your only hope, and you can't send it too far back though. That's the thing. And I officially won. He gave up. He surrendered. So yeah, it's a really complex game, but at the same time, like as far as units goes, it's very simple. Maybe it's because we don't know like the subtleties of it. But from what I understand, it's not necessarily a rock paper scissors, but it's like you have a ground unit that does a lot of damage, ground. Then you have the equivalent of that that does both air, like anti-air and ground, and then you have another one that's specifically anti-air. And then you have that for infantry. You have that for mech, or for in the case of the Zerg type unit, you have like a higher pool, and then you have like bigger mech and bigger air. And again, like so you have air that's probably like anti-ground, and then you got air units that are both ground and anti-air, and etc. etc. So you know it's fairly simple as far as that goes, and controls. It's fairly easy. It's you know it's very common with StarCraft, you know, Warcraft and all that stuff, even Command and Conquer and the Age of Mythology or even Age of Empires. But it's where the timeline goes, because sometimes you'll be in the present and then time shifts and you're trying to understand what's going on, so you go back in time just to see what happened, and then you do a change, but then it hasn't happened yet. So anyways, hope you enjoy. I sure did. So until next time.